and welcome to Gladwin Mendez, who is going to be a chair of one of the keynote panels at the upcoming CDAO Auckland. We're so pleased to have Gladwin Mendez with us. He's a long-term supporter of the event, and aren't we all glad to be seeing each other again in person? Welcome, Gladwin.
Oh, thank you, Siobhan, and thank you for having me on board again.
Fantastic. So Gladwin he's a virtual CDAO and he's an advisory board member for Corinium Global Intelligence. Gladwin is going to be moderating the keynote panel on creating an agile and adaptable data and analytics environment. What I'd love to kick off with, Gladwin, is can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up in data?
Wow. It's quite boring, I suppose, but also at the same time, if you look at my sort of heritage, I was sort of I'm what you would call a hybrid, born in India, lived in Dubai for 18 years, and then another 22 years here in New Zealand. Ethnicity in Indian, Portuguese, and French mix. I have a Greek wife and 3 kids who we call Grindian because I'm more Greek than Indian. And, sort of my background, and how I ended up in data. Look, so that's why I said this is the boring part. I always wanted to be a fighter pilot, soaring through the clouds and so on. But of course, with Indian parents, that was never going to happen. But I always had that natural sort of curiosity and wanted to know how things work, and sort of went into computer engineering, and that's what I did at university. But that natural curiosity of wanting to know how things work translated into wanting to know how businesses work, top down, and actually ended up with me working across 3 of the 4 big 4 consulting sort of audit advisory companies globally across their sort of advisory and management consulting arms, and specifically around building and leading the analytics teams. And what was fantastic there was I got that amazing sort of experience to work across the majority of the NZX 50 companies in New Zealand, and ended up sort of specializing in financial services, insurance, and investment spaces, to name a few. And it's purely a data-driven approach to understanding how businesses work from that actual data. And actually, the data proves it, right? You might say your business works this way, but the data shows something else. And really understanding from the bottom up. And then, of course, as a natural transition now, I'm ending up bringing that thinking to the board table and supporting companies and sort of maximizing value through data, their strategies and transformation.
Excellent. And that brings us on to the next question I have for you, really, which, Gladwin, is how have you seen data and analytics become a supporter of business goals in a way that we perhaps haven't seen in the past?
Look, that's a good question. What I'm seeing more and more, and I think everyone would probably agree, is that I think more than ever now, I'm seeing organizations in some shape or form having the statement of, we want to be a data-driven organization, right? You see it in some shape or form in their company strategies. Now, I think that's a really good first step, acknowledging you need to be one. So in that view, I think data is being more and more recognized as supporting business goals. And actually, there was a quote I read from a chap in America that sums it up perfectly, is with all the sort of big transformations going on right now, he summed it up with data enables digital transformation supports business objectives, and that's that clear linkage. I think people have jumped the gun a little bit and jumped into digital transformation and maybe are forgetting the data. And I think we do have a little bit of a way to go still. Additionally, from a people standpoint, so we talked about strategy, that tone at the top. From a people standpoint, and we've seen it again in the most recent Corinium State of Data and Analytics ASPAC. We've seen it from a people aspect where 0% of CDOs were reporting directly to the CEO. In this recent survey, we've seen that 15%, I believe, of CDAOs, but the number's gone up, report directly to the CEO. Now, again, to that strategy comment I talked about earlier, if you want data and analytics to truly become an enabler of business goals, you need to break down the barriers between the data executive and those multiple hoops you have to jump to the board table for data executives. So we're seeing that. The change is slow and the slow way to go, but we're moving in the right direction. So yeah, I'd say I'm seeing it in strategy and in people.
Fantastic. Related to that, I mean, how are you seeing people fostering a data positive culture and then empowering the teams in the broader organization to be using more data?
Look, I think, and I feel that it's one of the hardest. Like culture is a hard one, right? You've all heard this the statement that culture eats strategy for breakfast. Now, if you've got the strategy down pat, you need both hand in hand. It's actually one of the hardest but most rewarding areas for a business that's actually a business focused data executive, right? Uh, and so the focus has to be on people, right? If you want to influence culture, it's people who deliver initiatives, it's people who deliver outcomes at the end of the day. Yes, technology is a helper and an enabler. And there's a Maori saying that actually sums it up perfectly that I'll use. Everyone in New Zealand will know this one, is what is the most important thing in the world? He tangata, he tangata, he tangata. And that translates to it's the people, it's the people, it's the people. So it's just really driving that through that, you have to have the focus on people. And so here's an interesting thing, which I'm going to flip on its head. And I've mentioned this a couple of times before. Everyone has so focused on the customer experience over COVID, and as the key parts with digital transformations to date. I would challenge, more open-minded, more future-focused data executives to consider not just the customer experience, that's important, but the employee experience. How do you make their jobs more enjoyable, easier, and smarter? Because everyone knows this, right? No one in their right mind enjoys mindless copying and pasting into a spreadsheet every day and those really low value added activities, right? But everyone will know people in the business, in their businesses, who almost essentially have to be doing that. So coming back to that people culture focus is focus on your people. Consider what frameworks you can put in place for the education of your people throughout the business around data, depending on what people's roles are, right? It's not a one size fits all. That tone at the top, so you're going bottom up, tone at the top down, the communication channels you can put in place. Think of things like gamification, just to get data in front of mind, but also considering other aspects like data security, data privacy. There have been recent incidences in Australia and New Zealand where this is becoming more and more important. How do you become a data-driven organization? It's educating your business, your people, your executive, and your board on what's possible in breaking that old status quo. Hey, look, we've always done it this way.
Yeah.
And finally, we all have this challenge, and that's the next sort of question coming up and neatly feeds into that, is breaking all those macroeconomic challenges we're seeing currently around the Great Recession. Everyone's heard of that. So again, that focus on employee experience, making people's jobs more enjoyable, not tedious. Poor productivity scores. New Zealand has pretty poor productivity scores, and you keep hearing it in the news. Focusing on your people and your data and doing things smarter, not harder at the end of the day.
Terrific. Thank you. It does neatly lead to the next question, which is what are you seeing as some of the biggest challenges in data and analytics?
Look, I think in New Zealand in particular, it is getting good people, good data people. I think everyone wants to try and take the approach of let's get someone in from overseas. There is a great pool of people, future leaders for data executives and organizations need to consider, not just we'll go find some from overseas. Also consider what you can put in place to upskill people within your business into data. Right? Again, that's another thing to try and deal with the Great Resignation. If people are not enjoying their other roles or the role that they're in, is there an opportunity, a framework you can put in place that, hey, someone can put their hand up and they can be seconded or moved in and trained up? Imagine all the amazing business value and business insights and cumulative knowledge they have of the business that they're bringing in with that data focus. So business focus, data focus together, right? I think another one, so people's a challenge. I think there's a lot of buzzwords out there. I think a lot of businesses, senior executives think there's a general focus on business thinking on digital AI will solve all our problems, right? Without actually worrying about the foundational building blocks and good governance. We've got a number of sessions around governance, so that's really good during the sort of conference. How good is your data quality, for example? And making it real. Watch your APIs grind to a halt when you push bad data quality through. So those are just a couple.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, Gladwin, your session that you're going to be moderating at CDAO Auckland. Can you tell us a little bit about that and perhaps what you're looking forward to most about the event?
Sure. Look, I think we've touched upon doing things smarter, not harder. So I'm really looking forward to, how data can be more effectively quantified on its return on investment. Again, key things that the board are going to be looking at. What's the business value being delivered now rather than 5 years' time? How do you maximize and deliver value quickly, sooner, using agile methodologies and adapting your analytics, right? If something doesn't work, that's great. You've just learned a different way that it doesn't work, and rewarding failure. Again, if you look at some of the greatest innovative companies like Google, and they have their moonshot projects, they actually reward people even if they've gotten 50% through the project and find it doesn't work. I remember chatting to a person at Google. They actually reward the people if they pull the plug and go, this is not really a viable project. So that's really good. So rewarding failure, and at least if you've learned in the analytics space anyway, I think that's what we're going to be focusing on. How do you deliver value? And that's important, right? And you quantify the value being delivered quickly to the business, because sometimes data people are the worst people at actually quantifying the value and the ROI on their data projects. They put it up in the business case, deliver it, and never actually go back and quantify the value. All right. So, and what am I most looking forward to about the event? Actually, I've caught up separately with one of the other presenters, Dina Hay. And we bounced a couple of ideas around, and I'm actually really, this is one to watch, everyone. Yeah. So I'm actually, if she goes down the approach that we think she was going to go down, I'm really, really excited. It's going to be completely left field and very different and bring a unique, wonderful spin to data. So yeah, Dina Hay is one to watch.
Fantastic. Thank you, Gladwin. That's great. We're so looking forward to seeing you. This is Gladwin Mendez, Virtual CDAO and Advisory Board Member for Corinium Global Intelligence. Gladwin, thanks so much for sharing your thoughts, and we're so looking forward to seeing you in November.
No worries, Siobhan. Thank you for having me.